Chuck Worley with the 757 House Whisperer Show, coming in hot today. We have had a crazy rainy day. I showed up by boat, and Alvin, he pulled up in his sailboat, and I pulled up in my dinghy, and it's been a little wet today.
Yeah, for sure. And for basically all the cars been converted over to some type of boat in some way, shape, or form, huh? Because getting from place to place is crazy.
Anybody had any hydroplane situations today?
I went through a puddle that I thought I was going to hydroplane in. Driving that little car that I had.
I was going to say, you weren't driving your big old.
No, it would just plow through that no problem. But I was just in a little car today, so.
That's funny. Well, I would tell you, my son just got a 250 diesel, and compared to your diesel, it's not the same diesel.
No, they're quieter. If you got it,
gosh, I was like, Chase, I thought you got a diesel. He goes, I did. I said, no, really, no, yeah. I thought you got a 250 diesel. He goes, Dad, it's a diesel. So I go over and I pull the tank open. I'm like, this diesel, man, that thing is quiet.
Yeah, they've gotten a little quieter than
yours.
Much more quieter than my 99.
Your 99 dually. I hear that.
That's the downside of it. I can't sneak up on my employees. Like when I'm coming up on a job site, they know I'm coming down the road.
Yeah, so. there'll be no what they call that show on TV, Secret Boss or whatever. Yeah. There's no secret boss.
No.
You pull up, they feel you coming, but you'd be a lot safer if you were in high water.
I think so.
Water, you would be fine.
I think so.
I think no high winds are going to be picking that thing up. So.
I got 330,000 miles on that thing.
That's insane.
It's just like people say you just broke it in. It's ready. You're just now breaking that truck in.
Well, I will have to say, I know Albin's is an old school Cummins, which is a different beast than a new 2500 with a mile of giant trash can exhausts connected to it with the DEF filters and the catalytic converters out the wazoo. I mean, if anybody ever steals those, basically the truck's totaled almost. I mean, I make that up, but it's fun to think of.
Yeah. So I didn't do any deletes on my truck. It's just. It's all kind of original, whatever it is, and just I love it the way it is. It's fantastic.
It's an interesting metaphor, though, for how technology has changed, both for the atmosphere and efficiencies. When you look at the new trucks versus the new systems, and I know that you were mentioning earlier that HVAC is changing, the world's evolving like it does every 7 to 10 years.
We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, we are. That's one of my trivia questions today. We got a couple trivia questions for today. I like to always explain the show. This is a public service announcement show where we like to kind of just give information out. It is free of charge. Any questions that you guys have, we want to answer your questions about your house. I feel like it's a way that we can kind of give back to the public, the 757. I'm going to introduce all of our co-hosts and for the show, and they have the same heart I do, where we feel like the more people we serve, the more business that we get, right? So by giving back to the community. I don't know if some of you guys may realize this is not easy to get here every single week, 52 times a year, and spend an hour prepping for the show, time prepping for the show, trying to make sure we keep it fun. And, it's and of course I always surround myself with smart people. So we always have the ask the experts, the people that can actually answer all of these questions. We normally, a couple of weeks ago, we had like 8 people call in, and we had a couple of people last week
back to back.
And
great questions, great people.
And I'm telling you, and what I like to explain to people is we're here to answer your questions, but not only are you getting aided and helped, but you're helping thousands of listeners in the 757. This is not a nationally syndicated show. This is a 757 show. This is put out for you guys in this area, so local businesses. We're not all big franchises. We're all locally grown. We're all build our own businesses, and from the ground up. I mean, I know I started out with me in a truck.
Yeah, I need to reiterate. So if you're thinking about calling in, and you're kind of hesitant, remember you're going to be helping yourself by calling in, and you're helping a lot of other people.
Thousands of listeners, with the same question or even a question similar. Hey, look, I've got this addition, I'm doing this remodel, I'm doing that. got a question about the
And
sink,
you
what
might
kind of
you might
gas.
even be listening right now, and somebody's going to call in and ask the same question. You're say,
Yeah,
"Darn,
that's
I could have
right.
been that person." So,
I could have got that gift card for calling in, you know. So
what kind of gift card are they going to get?
I just went to, I think we went to just a Visa gift card. So that way you can spend it. If you want it on coffee, you can go get coffee. If you want a beer, go get a beer. If you want a wine, go get a wine.
Yeah.
You know,
Get something for your kids, whatever.
I was trying to just get away from the, you know, I talk about no franchise, but you know, I was buying, you know, I won't say their name, you know, coffee house franchise, and I'm just trying to get away from them and find a local coffee house, but either one's on the peninsula or one's on the south side.
I think it's a great idea, Chuck.
I'm just doing a, you know, gift card, and that way you can do whatever you want with it. You can tell your wife about it, not tell your wife about it. It's
just put it on hold. I'm going to call in right now.
So does that sound like an open shout out to somebody listening as the owner of a local coffee shop? They can get in on the show by just,
absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought it was a cool thing to, you know, cool.
So maybe we should start out with the trivia question, get those calls calling.
All right, let's do that. So
know?
757 House Whisperer, we are waiting on your calls about your houses. 627-7979. 627-7979. Really easy. It should be programmed in your phone. You know, Damon loves hearing from you guys. 627-7979. Call in and ask any question about the house. We got me and Albin here tonight. There's nothing about construction that one of us can't help you figure out problems in your house. And I'm talking all the way from the roof to the crawl space, siding to gutters to heating and air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, windows and doors. I mean, there's just nothing about a house that my boys can't figure out. So, boys and girl, right?
Yes, that's right.
Girl. So
that's right.
And she's probably tougher than all of us. So I don't want to make her mad if she's listening. So, all right, so let's go. I am Chuck Worley with Worley's Home Services. We do heating and air conditioning, electrical, plumbing, crawl space encapsulations, spray foam insulation, which you got to talk about that customer today about spray foam. So, and then what else do I do?
Yeah, so I don't know. Did you say the wells and stuff like that?
Yeah,
geothermal.
See, I always surround myself with smart people. So, geothermal systems. We bought Jake Gildersleeve Geothermal out of Chesapeake, 50-year-old company. I'm 56. Company's been great. Jake's dad started it, and it's a great company. He works for us now. If you guys any questions on geothermals and you know, we definitely got the answers for that. And then service wells and pumps, which is a huge business right now, right? So, all right. So Mike Davenport, CVP Windows and Doors, is one of our co-sponsors. And then Cindy Raw, she is a only woman we know with the license to kill. So she's our pest control, Alpha Pest Control. And we
were just talking about her. She is just flat getting it nonstop. She just will not stop, and she loves to service people. So
she's awesome.
Yeah. So we got Jack Killer also with Legacy Painting. He is the young buck of the group, and he's knocking it out of the park. He I think he told me he hired his 8th employee.
And some of y'all may not know the value of that, but at 25 years old, to be in business less than 5, right at 5 years, and to hire your 8th employee is just impressive.
Well, not only that, it's difficult to hire because he's looking for a certain employee, somebody that everybody can trust. They're coming into your personal space. You know, they're painting in your houses, and it's like he works really hard to get a team put together to service you guys out there. So, Legacy Painting, Jack, hi. Sorry you're not here tonight, but yeah. So, and then we have. Yeah, so I'm Albin with Albin Co. We specialize in remodels. We do kitchens, baths, and we don't have any roofers right now. We'll hand you a roof if you need a roof. You got a roofing question, we'll help you out there. And then we also have Michael Davenport.
Already introduced.
Oh, you did.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
And then just ask the trivia question.
Okay, so hardy plank. Just simple question. Hardy plank. What is it made of? That's my question. And I think Chuck had one about.
I do. So what are the only freons allowed to be sold now? What are the two are?
What is Freon?
So let me give you an example. So Freon goes
plumbing, or what is it
inside the
going
air
in?
conditioners.
Okay,
All right. So back in the day, it was R12, and which went into more commercial stuff in your cars, and then R22 went into houses. Now there's two different other numbers, which if y'all were listening last week, you're cheating because although we appreciate
we're
you
rinsing
listening
and repeating a
last
little
week.
information
Yeah,
here.
so
So
they're but I thought that would be a good trivia question is what are the two Freons left? So R22, R12.
So this would be the
answer.
stuff that you put in
That's
right
that we're
now,
doing
right?
now.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that we're doing now.
All right.
So those are the trivia questions. We've already got people on the lines holding. So we're going to go to them, but I'm also going to remind you of the phone number, 627-7979. Call in, get on the list, and we will answer your questions. So let's go to Alan.
Hey, everybody. I was over at my lady friend's house in Fox Hill, which is very close to Buckrow Beach here in Hampton, and her uncle was over there in the backyard. Now, it's a 2-story, probably 3-bedroom house, and her uncle was over there, and he was taking the air conditioning and heating system behind the house, which is kind of like large and whatever, and we were standing out there, and he took the panels off, and he was doing something called cleaning the coils. Now, I'm not sure what that means, but he was trying to explain to my lady friend, her uncle, they were like chipping. I don't know, chipping's the word, like on the ground, and he was telling her that that's not a good thing. And then also right beside the house,
do you mean
is
the
a
fins
2-story kind
you
of
mean the
small.
fins? There's like fins on the coil, and they were like falling off.
They were falling on the ground like chips of, I don't want to say rust,
Yep.
but it was like chips.
Yeah, I know what you're. I'm
Aluminum
familiar.
chips.
Yeah, it's aluminum chips. Yep. And then what was your other question?
Maybe. Right. And then also, you guys, right beside the house is kind of a newer upstairs, downstairs, kind of skinny beach houses, upstairs, downstairs apartments that are Airbnbs. And her uncle pointed next door and said, "You see those air conditioning and heating systems right there, Alan?" And I looked over there, you guys, and they look like no bigger than 2 large suitcases. And then he made a point, and he goes, "Those are kind of a different deal there." He goes, and part of that system is actually in the 2 apartments. And I'll take your comments off the air.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Alan. You're helping people by asking those questions because those are really, really great questions. And so as far as the coils, when you're cleaning them, if you use a pressure sprayer, like what's that called, a nozzle? Nozzle on the end of a hose.
Yeah.
If you spray into those things, you can normally you want to mist it. You don't want to
no high pressure.
High pressure, full throttle. Because what happens with the coils are actually designed to kind of protect the coils from being damaged and helps with airflow. The coils get old, and they will, if you spray them hard or you rub them with so if you get them really dirty, you have to use like a wire brush and go up and down because the fins actually go up and down and kind of go straight up and straight down. If you go to the right or left, you can, but you'll flatten out the coils, which will actually stop up the airflow. And you have to have so much air going through those coils because you're actually cooling down the coils. So the best way to explain that is like when you're walking past an air conditioner, everybody's done this. You can't help yourself. You walk past, you put your hand over top of the fan, not in the fan, but you're like, you see air moving, you kind of put your, sometimes you can see heat, in that air. So you put your air and you're like, man, that's hot air coming off that air conditioner. So that's basically pulling heat past those hot coils, pulling air past those hot coils and cooling those coils down. Okay. So that's important. So if you bend over those fins, you will actually stop the airflow on those units. And what that will cause is it to go out on head pressure because there won't be enough air going past the coil to cool the coils down, right? For the air conditioner to work and operate properly. So it's kind of the same thing if the fan stops working. The outdoor unit's going to go out on head pressure because it's going to get too hot. It's not going to cool down. So stopping up the coil, like bending over those fins, and everybody has seen that air conditioner. They like walk past it, and the dog has peed on it. The the big dog that's half horse, is rubbing up against it and flattens out the coils. I've seen handprints, and I'm not a proponent of, don't spare the rod in your house, because I definitely didn't in my house. But if your child is putting his hand or his foot on those coils and putting his footprint on it, you might want to not spare the rod, right? So don't flatten out those coils. But you know what I'm talking about? You ever seen that?
I know
where
exactly what you're talking about.
Handprints on
I bet you had to repair a few from
units.
stuff that's flown out like lawnmower stuff,
No, that happens a lot. Yeah. We'll see air conditioners like get knocked off the pad,
Oh, wow.
And have this big dent in the coil, and zero turn.
Guys out there to listen and protect your investments.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I do. I pull the disconnect on mine when I'm mowing the lawn around my air conditioner, so it doesn't suck up all the grass that I'm growing.
Smart.
The other idea is to blow the I have a rider, I have a Cub Cadet, and I ride it, but I throw it
the opposite way.
I throw I throw the grass the opposite way of the house. And why? Because I don't want that getting into the coils and clogging up the coils, or
your nice windows, or your nice siding.
There's a nice window. Yes. I will tell you that Mike Davenport put CVP windows and doors, put some nice windows and really nice glass door in my house. And yes, if that gets broken because a foolish person
I got a story on that.
Facing the wrong way. I mean, my wife is small, but she is mighty.
As a contractor, we've done some, bought some homes and flipped them and all that stuff. And, we got to maintain the yard while we're flipping the house, So I had somebody that would come and cut the grass. I come out to the house one day, and this house had a garage that somebody put a sliding door on the back side of the garage. So it's right at ground level. I come out there, and the glass doors, like, their door's there, but the glass is like all laying on the ground. And I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but I'm like, darn. So I'm like looking, says that's a pretty fresh cut grass there.
That's horrible.
It was like,
well, hold on, Dave, just for one more second. I want to remind y'all, we're getting ready to go to break in a few. So 627-7979, call in on break. So we got you when we come back live. So go ahead, Dave, real quick.
Yeah, I just saw a building today. I'm invited to be a trustee to buy an old church, 1870s, and I noticed plaster coming off the wall. And divine intervention here, when I went and checked on the code's compliance, the officer used to go to that church years ago, and he explained to me, no, awesome. It's not the steeple leaking. It's the condensation coming through the stone wall, and I wanted to know, what's the fix? A big dehumidifier? How do, when we get this building going, we keep the plaster from falling off on some of the exterior, the inside of that stone wall?
I'm guessing this is the wall, right?
Is this your church buying it? This is your church buying it?
Y'all
moving into it?
Yeah, and it's like under the steeple, so you think the roof's leaking. And I just happened to talk to the codes and compliance guy. He knew the building. He knew the plaster problems. He said it's not the roof leaking. He said it's the moisture coming through the stone walls. And that is just going to be a perpetual problem that you got to just kind of deal with. I wondered if you guys knew about that. Is there something we put inside the stone wall to protect the plaster inside the building, or is there a dehumidifier unit that should be running?
Well, is the plaster directly in contact with the? I'm trying to make sure I assess the situation properly. Are we talking about stone with plaster on the inside of the stone, or is there something? Yes. Is there something else going on there?
So there has to be wood.
Right. There's got to be wood that the plaster goes to. But he explained that he was there in that building for 8 years, and that was just a constant problem, that there was no leaks coming through. It's just different parts of walls that are attached to the stone, ultimately is attached to that stone wall, that's the exterior, is basically transferring moisture.
Very interesting. So do we have time to respond, or we got to go to break first, or what?
We got 2
Yeah,
minutes.
I
mean,
All
we'll
right,
be
so we
listening.
have to do a hard break.
So one thing I'm thinking is, I'm just throwing out ideas right now because I mean we don't have a lot of
we
people
may
in
have
this
to
condition.
we may have to see it.
I'm thinking some type of water sealant on the outside to seal it, a clear sealing. Of course, you're dealing with historic house or structure, so maybe this wouldn't be something they would allow, or tear down the plaster on the inside and spray the inside of the backside of the stone, and then reapply the plaster to make it back to where it originally looked. But you've got to stop that moisture penetration. So
you definitely have to do that. The other question is, what's that stone look like, man? And congratulations to your church for getting the church. Cool. That's fantastic. I hate to see an old, beautiful church not being utilized. It's heartbreaking for me. So congratulations on that. And, but yeah, I mean, the question is, we pull the plaster down, does the brick and block?
That's
better?
the other thing is the question is structurally, can you pull the plaster off? What is it going to, if it's been leaked? Here's another thing you need to think about. If this has been constant over the years, like it's just something that's going to always happen, and there's wood structure back there, that wood structure is probably.
So a friend of mine who was a roofer told me one time, he said, only the lucky ones see the leak. So it's probably not leaking where you think it is. It's leaking in a lot more places. You're just not. We got to go to a hard break. But I definitely, if you can hold on, I'd love to talk more about your church. Hey, this is Chuck Worley with the 757 House Whisperers Show. I want to thank you guys for continuing to listen. If you're just jumping on, this is a call that we are answering questions about your house. Any problems, any heating and air, any windows, roofing. It's been raining like crazy. Any questions about your house. When you guys call in, ask questions about the house. We answer your questions, but at the same time, you guys are helping thousands of listeners on the 790 AM. So I want to jump back on. I do want to introduce all our hosts again. And it looks like Dave called back. So we're going to talk to him for a second more, because that is a very interesting church. There's a lot of ideas on how we can help him. So I'm glad he called in, because this is not the only churchgoer listening, right? So a lot of people, they might not have an 1870 house or church, but they got an old house or an old building they're dealing with. And condensation seems to be popular in older houses. So I am Chuck Worley with Worley's Home Services. I do heating and air, electrical, plumbing, crawl space encapsulations, spray foam insulation. Mike Davenport owns CVP Windows and Doors. Any issues with windows and doors, and he can take care of you. I'm gonna and then Cindy Rawl, Alpha Pest Solution. She deals with all of our pest controls and gives free inspections for crawl spaces, and she is awesome.
So I'm Albin with Albin Co. We specialize in kitchens, baths, remodels. I know with a lot of rain right now, maybe some of you guys have some roofs out there need some attention. We can help you there. And then we have Jack Keller with Legacy Painting. He will help you with your interior, exterior paint needs, and he'll also touch up the walls if you got some dings, dents, or scratches. So that's the team.
That is us. So I'm going to remind you again, 627-7979. Do not wait 20 minutes, 25 minutes to call, because we'll only have 3 minutes left.
Yeah, we can't only talk so fast.
What was it last time, man? You got 3 people called in the last 4 minutes, which they had great questions, but we couldn't get to them on the air, which, again, we don't mind helping you personally, but by helping you, we're helping thousands of other people in the same area if we can get it live and answered. So, all right. So do you want to go to Dave? No. Oh, let's ask.
Yeah, so the trivia questions, let's make sure you guys are calling in for this. We're going to try to answer these questions towards the end of the show, but we want you to call in. What is Hardy Plank made of? that's my question. You had a question about.
I had a question about what are the 2 Freons that are left that we can actually sell legally? What are the 2 Freons?
Well, you talking about new
R12s,
units now, right?
Yeah, new units.
Yeah.
New units
All right.
that we can install now. If you were listening last week, we talked about issues with buying Freon and trying to find Freon. It is a thing. It's a real thing. And I even had a third-party guy call in who's a good friend of mine that used to be in our business, and he had been posting.
Yeah,
a whole
he
bunch
called
of
in last
stuff.
week,
Yeah,
right?
He called in last week. He had a whole bunch of posts that he was posting on Facebook.
Yeah, that
and
was good information.
I thought it was great information. And it was a third party. So it wasn't like, hey, Truck's trying to sell me a heat pump. No, I'm giving you information on our industry, which it's not as bad as COVID trying to get equipment. But man, this Freon is like liquid gold right now. So
if we get some
all right.
time, I also want to talk about spray foam. One of my customers down in Southampton County is going to looking into that, and I
think
want to
great.
hear
I
some
think it's
stuff
great.
from you.
So let's go back to Dave. Let's finish up with the church, and then we'll head to Mike in Newport News.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
So you had a question before we went to the break?
Yeah. So, when you're dealing with this, and Chuck has talked about this, is, the condensation is a transfer, is a dew point. So you got hot air, cold air. Chuck maybe wants to talk about this and how it forms. But if you got a hot surface and a cold surface, where's it going to form? It's going to form on the cold side, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you're going to have condensation, and that's what's happening there.
It's just wherever, this is the science. So wherever the heat touches cold, what happens? It doesn't matter where you're at.
You get a dew point.
You're going to hit condensation.
I guess it's not the dew point.
Sweat is going to happen. Sweat and condensation is going to happen. So as soon as hot touches cold, the best example that I think even laymen, not people working in the trades every single day, can understand, okay, that ductwork going through my house, that grill in the ceiling, it's cold, right? I got cold air blowing out of it. It's 50 some degrees blowing out of it. And I got a hot attic that's 150 degrees. So everybody knows those 2 temperatures. Cold, because that's what I'm paying for, and the hot attic, because we don't want to go up there and sweat, right? So when that hot air leaks in and touches that cold grill, so on the back side of the sheetrock where your insulation is in the ceiling on your first or second floor, right? So there's hot air infiltrating in past that duct and touches that cold register. When that hot attic air touches that cold register, what happens?
It's going to
sweat. You're going to have sweat, drip bubbles. You're going to have drips everywhere. And you're like, so that hot is touching cold. So condensation is going to happen. Then what happens? Mold, mildew. And that's what I was saying. A friend of mine told me years ago that he said, only the lucky people see the leak. Yeah. And where that came from was the guy said, man, my window's a little shaky in the frame. And he went to go reach up to unlock it, to open it, and the whole window fell out.
Wow.
Right. So of course, he about had a daggone heart attack. He's like, because he's a big dude. He's like, I didn't put any weight on that window. He goes, no, I did it to me yesterday. I just put it back, and give him a heart attack. But but the point was the window had been rotted out. The sill was rotted out. But he had been there 25 years. He's like, all I know is I'd started to shake my window and it just fell out. So his quote was, only the lucky ones see the leak.
Yeah.
And what's that mean?
Yeah.
That means if I saw the leak 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to jump all over that thing, right? It's actually Mike from Newport News is our next caller. We're going to go to him soon. When do you replace the roof? Before it leaks, right? You don't want.
So in this, you say only the lucky ones find it. And here's another thing is this ties right into this whole condensation issue is the condensation around windows. This is a sale from Michael Davenport with CVP Windows. If you got those old windows and you don't have any seals around it, that cold air is leaking out the sides, or the hot air is leaking in through the sides, depending on whether or not the pressure is right in the house. You're going to have one way or the other, and the moisture is going to form there and just rot the snot out of that window. So, but back to this whole thing about condensation. Here's one solution: just turn off the AC in the house. Of course, that's not what in the church.
You're going to have
I'm sure you don't want that,
Sunday,
right? So, only the ones that are serious about coming to church are going to show up. But I don't think that's what you're looking for. Yeah. So But I am concerned about the wood framing behind
we
that
got to remember
plaster, if
back in
there is.
1870, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
back in 1870, guess what they didn't have?
They didn't have AC.
So there was no condensation.
Yeah, no condensation. So this church was not designed for AC. And so now we're trying to figure out how can we get it to where you can use AC in there. And I
It's
think
hard
the
enough to
solution,
get people to Jesus. It's hard to get them to church. But
well, I mean, it's a
if you don't
difficult
have
path
air
to follow.
conditioning, yeah, it's going to
So,
be really hard.
you know, I think a little bit of investigative work on your part, Dave, is going to be, can you take a small section out, see what's behind there, see if the plaster smack up against the stone or whether you got wood.
See if there's
You
a
need to
separation.
investigate the wood to see if the wood is just completely rotten out, ready to fall off the wall. It could be just cement and lathe and plaster right over it, right to the stone. I have no idea. But if you can get insulation behind that, which might be cost prohibitive to you guys, I would do a spray foam and then rebuild that out and put that on there. But that's, you know, to get that building to last another 80, 90 years, 100 years, whatever, you're going to want.
I know there's a black sealant that we use in crawl spaces
that you could put against it too.
That you can spray it versus because spray foam,
but still it's from the inside, you know, because you don't want to mess up the stone on the outside.
Yeah, spray foam is not waterproof, so if water gets behind it,
oh, this is a good point. So you're going to need some type.
You're going to need some kind of sealant on that brick.
And we have the capability of doing that. If you did get that off, we have a liquid sprayer that it's a big hose. We could spray that wall with a certain perm rating that. Whatever it comes up with, that, you know, somebody comes up with a perm rating of trying to keep that moisture out, we can apply that, but then you could put some insulation to that and then put the, you know, plaster back over that.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is we got to stop the water. I tell people this all the time. The death of a house or a building is water,
right?
Is moisture and water. The death of a house. That's the fastest way for a house to die is water. And why do I say that? Because I'm in and out of crawl spaces for years, in and out of crawl spaces. I'll be at a house. They'll refer me to the next door neighbor. When he encapsulates his crawl space is perfect. It's a 100-year-old house, you know, Ghent or wherever it is. This large amount, you know, old houses over in Norfolk, right? And I go over to the house, like you can't drive a nail through this wood. It's so old and so strong. And then next door neighbor, I can literally stick my finger through the wood. Well, what happened? That wood got wet. And then it failed. The wood doesn't fail until it gets wet. So it's important. Like, and every house is different. Like I said, these houses were side by side. One house was perfect. One house was not. So, but the biggest thing we have to do is get the moisture, get the water, get everything out. Ideal world, money's no object. I'm thinking you're probably going to want to pull off all that sheetrock and whatever. I would at least pull off sections. Like where
you could do baby bites,
like,
you know,
like even if you pulled off, you know, 20 foot, 15 foot, 10 foot, like a section.
Break it down.
Because if you just pull off a little, like bust a hole in the wall, nope, she's good.
Yeah, it's probably
my
not
fear would be you're feeling confident, okay, we're good. And then it goes back to my buddy who said,
pick a spot that you know might have seen a lot of this moisture and then go from there. But we're running low on time here. We probably need to move on to Mike.
Great question, David. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. That was a great question. Mike with Newport News.
Before I ask you about my roof, do they make the registers, the standard 8x11 registers in PVC? Because I had that dripping problem too.
Yeah.
What was the question?
What is the size? 4x8?
What are we talking about again? The registers? That would be a question.
The registers are not the problem. That's actually the symptom of you having a problem. If your registers are sweating, it's not because they're just sweating for no reason. What's happening is hot air is touching cold air. So you have to fix that. The sweat and condensation is actually the symptom. And I tell people this all the time as far as they see something in their house that's wrong. And this is a great question, Mike. Thanks for asking. They see say, hey, my problem is I got sweaty ductwork.
Did you call that the Venturi effect? Is this what you're going with that?
Yeah. So what happens is when your supply duct is blowing 50-degree air into the house, right? So what happens is you have a crack, like where the the boot and register come through the sheetrock,
was not sealed
that's
properly
never,
right there.
ever a perfect cut. So what happens is, and there'll be, I mean, I've seen 2-inch gaps, but 1-inch gaps, half-inch gaps on each side, because you got to be able to fit it in. And my joke with electricians is, or plumbers, if you have a 2-inch pipe, how big's the hole? 3-inch, so you don't miss, right? So there's always going to be a gap. Well, the same thing with the registers. They're not going to be perfect cuts. So what happens is, when that hot, humid air is sitting there in the attic, in the insulation, when the duct starts blowing that air, that leak around the grill, there'll be what's called a Venturi effect, which is basically all the air that's just sitting there on top of that sheetrock at where the duct is coming is going to suck all the hot air from the attic in with the cold air. So what's happening is, there's too much hot air coming in, and it's touching that cold duct before it gets out of the grill and causing condensation. So your problem is not the grill. So great question. Hey, I want to replace those grills with PVC. They will still sweat.
This is where the houses are talking to a situation where this register is telling you something.
Yeah, it's a symptom of the real problem. The real problem is, you got infiltration in your house. So what you would look at, especially before you do the roof, is we have guys that I could send out to take a look at your attic, but you would probably need to spray foam, suck that old insulation out, spray foam it, spray foam around the registers, spray foam around the top of the ceiling fans, spray foam around the pull down staircases, spray around the infrared recessed can lights.
Yeah, if it's one thing that I've learned in building houses, is that, that's probably the most important place to insulate is in the ceiling, or 100%. Roof or ceiling.
What's your biggest
way.
return on investment? When I go into a house, people are like,
so
all
we're
right,
down
Chuck,
to 6 minutes here.
Chuck, I can't afford to do the crawl space encapsulation and the attic. What should I do first? I said, well, it depends on the house. He's like, why would it depend on the house? I said, well, if you have a war zone in your crawl space, I mean, you got to do that first, because remember, moisture kills, right? Moisture kills the house. So water kills the house. So if you have a war zone under the house, we got to fix that first.
Yeah.
The biggest return on investment, which is a different question than what they asked me.
Yeah.
Should I do the attic or the crawl, right? The biggest return on investment is always the attic.
Yeah.
Think about, I know it's hard to believe, I'm a very large man that used to run track in cross country, but think about, in your body, you cover your hands, but you cover your head, because 30-40% of the heat that leaves your body leaves your head first, right? Same with a house. The roof is always, or the attic is always going to leak first, right?
Yeah, that hot air is always pressing against the
heat
ceiling.
rises, cold air falls, right? But all the heat rising, so you're losing all that heat. You put heat into the house during the winter, you lose all the heat, right? So sealing the attic first is always the best return on investment. But if you have a war zone in the crawl space, you have to fix that first.
Yeah.
So, but great question. Your second question there, it looks like, was, when's the best time to replace the roof? My joke is before it leaks, right? So, have you had it inspected lately, Mike?
No, I haven't, but I had it replaced when we had that hailstorm at Hampton Roads 30 years ago. So I'm thinking I'd rather do it on my time schedule than the roof's time schedule.
Well,
but I have a 3-story house.
Yeah, 30 years.
You got a good long life out of that roof. But
you should go up on the roof and kiss them shingles and say, thank you for your service. So yeah, that's a great, I mean, I know they have 50 years.
Yeah, I was kind of, when I was reading that question, I was thinking, is he talking, what time of year? But I mean, if you're talking about life expectancy out of a shingle, you should probably start putting some money aside if you haven't already. If you did put the money aside, why not just go ahead and get it? Because here's another thing you need to look at. You want to do it before the insurance company calls you and says, we're dropping you. Because they are dropping people like a rock, depending on how they'll look at your roof and they say, okay,
that Google, right? What's the Google?
I don't know. I think they have receipts. That information is, when you buy the house, they're going to ask you some questions. They're going to see how old the roof is. They write it down. If you get a new roof on, you need to call them up and say you got a new roof, because they're going to be calling you.
Of course,
soon.
they're not dropping their rate.
So they're looking for those people that are not they're not maintaining their houses. And if you've got a bad roof on there, they're going to be like, well, this guy's a liability. We're going to get rid of him. So you also need to keep that in mind too, that your insurance company is watching you. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely want to do that. But yeah, I'd start saving money at about 20 years, I would guess, on a roof.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
I mean, with heating and air conditioning, I tell people it starts getting over 10 years old. This Freon, the coils, replacing coils, it's so daggone expensive. It's probably worth, investing into, start saving money, not replacing it. But that way, if you got a couple $1,000 repair, you're ready. You already got a down payment on it.
Mike, we can give you a call if you need a new roof, but I think we're going to be wrapping things up here. We got to answer these trivia questions. Thank you for calling in, Mike. So
I'll answer mine first.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mine's easy. R454, which has the beautiful propane. Whoever had the great idea of putting propane in Freon, but that must have been a good salesman, but from DuPont. But R54 and then R32 are the two Freons that we can.
But you can still get the others. You can refill old units, right?
R410A there is some EPA limitations on things that we.
No, I got you. So Hardy is Hardy Siding is obviously a brand, but it is made of a fiber cement, which is made up of a few simple products: sand, water, cellulose fiber, and Portland cement. When if you go even more simplistic, those items are the mixture of limestone, clay, and gypsum. And of course, to get all that put together, there are some proprietary products as James Hardy puts in there. So that's the answer to that question. So in short, Hardy is fiber cement board, which there are other brands out there that make a very similar product.
So that is us. I'm going to introduce everybody on the show again.
Yeah.
This is Chuck Worley with Worley's Home Services. We have Mike Davenport with CVP. Sorry, I was doing ABB. CVP Windows and Doors. We got Cindy with Alpha Pest Solutions, Jack with Legacy Painting, and
Albin with Albin Co.
All right. So how much time we got left? About 30 seconds. All right. So thank you guys again for listening. We do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned something from the show.
Yeah,
we put a lot of effort into these answers, so I want to make sure everybody's getting something out of the show.
If you didn't get your thoughts out, call us at 757-955-9415, or you can text to that number, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, all that at 757housewhisperer.com.
Thank you, sir. You did all that for me. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
The preceding program was sponsored and paid for by Worley Home Services, who's entirely responsible for its content.